If you've been walking the same old road for miles and miles, if you've been hearing the same old voice tell the same old lies, if you're trying to fill the same old holes inside, well, there's a better life. Well, there's a better life. If you got pain, he's a pain taker. If you feel lost, he's a way maker. If you need freedom or saving, he's a prison shaking savior. If you got chains, he's a chain breaker. We've all searched for the light of day in the dead of night. We've all found ourselves worn out from the same old fight. We've all run to things we know that just ain't right. When there's a better life, yeah, there's a better life. If you got pain, he's a pain taker. If you feel lost, he's a way maker. If you need freedom or saving, he's a prison shaking savior. If you got chains, he's a chain breaker. If you believe it, if you receive it, if you can feel it, somebody testify.
Testify.
If you believe it, if you receive it, if you can feel it, somebody testify.
Testify.
If you believe it, if you receive it, if you can feel it, somebody testify.
Testify.
If you believe it, if you receive it, if you can feel it, somebody testify.
Testify.
If you got chains, he's a pain taker. If you feel lost, he's a way maker. If you need freedom or saving, he's a prison shaking savior. If you got chains, he's a chain breaker. If you need freedom or saving, he's a prison shaking savior. If you got chains, well, he's a chain breaker.
Hello and good morning, everyone. For those of you who don't know, my name is Joshua Burley, and I am a summer student working at Cornerstone Community Church in Lively for the summer. And welcome to our service this morning. This Sunday just happens to be Father's Day, and so for our bumper this week, I thought that it would be cool if I introduced you all to my father, to my dad. And so this is Paul Burley. He's my dad. And Dad, why don't you share a little bit about yourself?
I'm Paul, and I'm Josh's dad, and I'm also a pastor. I'm a pastor in a town called Smith Falls, and another thing I love to do is coach football. I've been coaching football for over 30 years, and one of the memories that I have, one of the best memories I have of Joshua is last summer when we went to Ukraine, and we did some ministry over there, and one of the things that happened was we were praying over a lady. Joshua was praying over a lady who couldn't see. And after he prayed, the Lord touched her, and she could see. And so that's kind of a really amazing memory that I have that we did together.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because we've actually, throughout both of our lives, we've done a lot of stuff together. He's been a football coach, but he's also been my football coach for a long time. He's been my pastor for a long, long time. And yeah, we've done a bunch of trips together. And I personally am so thankful for my dad as a spiritual influence in my life, but also just to be there for me, to help me out in all aspects, whether it's teaching something to me on the field or helping me to figure out how to drive and all those kinds of things. So I'm very thankful for my dad, and I would encourage you during this time to make sure you you share your gratitude to your fathers and the father figures in your life today. For this service this morning, we do just want to remind you that if you need to give of your tithes and offerings, you can feel free to go to cornerstonelively.com. We have a give section that you can click on, and there will be a page there with all the different instructions of how you can give during this time. Now, if you're new, what we would love for you to do is also go to our website at cornerstonelively.com and click on the I'm New section. And what it'll pull up is a form for you to fill out just so that you can let us know a little bit about you and we can connect. And what we'll do, if you do that for us, is we'll send a donation to a local charity in the Sudbury area on your behalf, just as a thanks for you to be able to connect with us during this time. We also did want to mention again this week that throughout all these Sunday services, we have a number that you can text whenever you want to send the staff at the church a question or mention something about the service, maybe share something that God put on your heart afterwards. And so if you want to let us know anything during this service, please feel free to send us a message at 705-692-1658, and it should be down there below. So feel free to send us a message today.
And in the service today, we're focusing again on the book of Revelation, and today is focusing on numbers in the book of Revelation and the meaning behind them. So if you can, on your Facebook page, if you can share the service, that would really be appreciated.
So again, thank you everyone for joining us this morning. Happy Father's Day, and we hope to see you all very, very soon.
Bye.
Well, hey everybody, my name is Kyle and I'm the pastor here at Cornerstone Community Church. So glad that you've joined us today. And if you're watching live, I want to say happy Father's Day. Just want to thank all of the dads out there who do such an amazing job of demonstrating the heart of our Father God to the children in your life and the children around you as well. We honor you, dads. We love you. Dad, happy Father's Day to you. I know you're watching from home. Dads, you have permission today to do as many bad dad jokes as you like. All right, you have permission. This is the one day of the year your kids, your wife cannot tell you to stop because it is your day. What do you call something that is pink and fluffy? Pink fluff. That's right. What do you call something that is blue and fluffy? Pink fluff holding its breath. Guys, that one was for free. I want to let you know just that we are aware of what's going on in our province and what they're saying about regathering. And we sent out an email and some social media posts this past week about our plan for what's happening in the immediate future. If you didn't get that, I want to let you know that for the immediate future, we are going to continue to create great faith-filled, encouraging content for you on a weekly basis. We do also want your feedback, though, and so we have a survey set up for you, and the way that you can access that is either by going to cornerstonelively.com, but we don't want you to navigate away from this right now. So here's what you can do. You can text the word survey to 705-692-1658, survey, and you're going to get that right on your phone. Need your feedback for the leadership as they make decisions to both honor God and love the people here in our community. So please help us by doing that today. Guys, we're going to jump into the Word, continue our conversation on the book of Revelation. Is this the end? We're just having a talk about what the Bible has to say, what God has to say about the pandemic that we're experiencing in the world right now. Quick recap. Week 1, we talked about how in crazy world events and pandemics, we don't need to be afraid because Jesus is there with us. The second week, we talked about how it feels like there's a battle, and that's because there is a battle. But it's a spiritual battle, and in that battle, God has given us a mission to bring His order to the chaos around us. Last week, we learned how God has a plan and that He is in control. And that plan may or may not look like what we expected it to look like at all. And today I want to tell you, don't stop, never give up. I want to tell you that in order for love to triumph, we need to persevere. Persevere so love can triumph. Man, every time I say those words, I think of the S Club 7 song, Don't Stop, Never Give Up, hold your head high and reach the top. If you know what I'm talking about, please let me know in the comment section. So, I'm fearful that I have dated myself because no one else will, right? Okay, that's my last dad joke for the day, okay? But really, I do want to tell you today, in order for love to triumph, we need to persevere. Do not give up. The Bible tells us, Jesus tells us, that our ability to love others will be tested. John chapter 16, verse 33, it says, in this world, you will have trouble. This is Jesus talking. He says, in this world, you will have trials and tribulation, but take heart. That means fear not, for I have overcome the world. So what does it mean to not give up in the middle of a tribulation? Well, in order to understand this and answer this question, we need to understand numbers in the book of Revelation.
Numbers. Numbers are an integral part of our existence. They're how we measure value, understand what we see, and help us to clearly communicate with one another. Far beyond their practical value of giving proportions, they carry meaning and the ability to quickly communicate complex ideas. Numbers play a critical role in the book of Revelation. Although it would be easy to try to read into these numbers to find some mystical explanation for them, John, the author, utilizes numeric concepts that his first readers would already be familiar with. As we look to understand the numbers and their meanings, it's important to consider how they're used throughout the Bible. For example, the number 3 in the Bible usually refers to God. In the Bible, God is described as Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. He is called Holy 3 times, and when Jesus was born, he received 3 gifts and rose on the 3rd day. When the original readers of the biblical text came across this number 3, they immediately knew what the author was referring to. Other examples would be the number 7, which represents completion or perfection, and 10, which represents God's power and authority. So, when you read about a beast with 7 heads and 10 horns, the original readers would have understood that this is an attempt to overthrow God's perfect kingdom. Or take the number 12, which represents God's government on earth. When you see the number 144,000, which is a multiple of 12, the extra zeros representing expanse or extravagance, you know that this represents a large multitude of people from all nations that God will invite to rule and reign with him. Lastly, we encounter fractions in Revelation. Fractions simply reference something that is not full or complete. So, when you read that 1/3 of the world suffers a plague, it simply means that not everyone will be wiped out. Or, when we read about 3.5 years, a fraction of 7, this is a reference to an indefinite time, but not the fullness of time. These numbers are not secret codes, but rather clear references to big ideas that are found throughout the Bible. The big idea in regards to the numbers in Revelation is that there is an order to the universe. Just like 1 + 1 always equals 2, so we are encouraged with the truth that God has numbered not only our days, but the days of evil. God will bring all things to completion in the fullness of time. You can count on it.
Do you ever wonder why what's going on in the world right now, like why it happens? Do you ever really wonder why, like the hatred and the division and the anger and the call out culture? Do you ever wonder why at the root of it all that it's really happening? Look, when we look at the book of Revelation and we understand the numbers actually paint this picture that God is in control. it's kind of like math. When we understand the numbers, they begin to add up. I told you to read Revelation chapter 6 to 11 for this week. And so let's jump right in, because we get to Revelation chapter 6 and you might ask the question, what in the world is going on? Why is this happening? Because we have this picture of God and there's 7 seals and 7 trumpets and they're being poured out, and God seems angry and mean and malicious, and you're like, who would follow this God? But when we understand the numbers, God is actually bringing order to the chaos. Chapter 6 begins with this picture of these 4 horsemen. And at the surface level, at the very beginning, it seems like a beautiful picture. That the first horse is big and grand, and it's white and it's beautiful, but it very quickly turns bad. And that horse, it represents conquest. And there's another horse, it's a red horse, and it represents war. And then the third horse represents famine. And finally, the black horse represents death. So we have conquest and war and famine and death. And tragically, what day in our human history have we ever seen a day that hasn't been represented by those 4 things? Well, I don't think that we've ever seen that. And so the question that we need to ask is, why would the Lamb unleash these 4 horsemen on the world? Well, he's not unleashing them so much as releasing or revealing them. You see, we can have 2 responses in the world right now. We could say, God, your will be done. I will follow your direction and your will. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done. Or we can say, I want it my way, not your will, but mine. And our human will really does say that we want to conquer, and do so by stealing and destruction and getting what doesn't belong to us. We lie and steal and kill. And so we see these 4 horsemen, and what really jumps out at me is that they don't change anybody's hearts. You see, the people that experience the tribulation of these horsemen, that they don't come to a place of repentance. Now, repentance just means to turn around and go another way. And this is not the first time that we see this pattern happening in the Bible. We can jump all the way back to the book of Exodus, and you read the story of how God freed his people, the Israelites, from the nation of Egypt as they were enslaved. And in order to make that happen, God released 10 plagues upon that nation. Now, those 10 plagues were actually representative of the false Egyptian gods, and it said to the people that if you trust in those false gods, they will not protect you and they will not sustain you. I think a normal, human, reasonable response to these plagues and these consequences would be, well, after 1 or 2 or 3, that I'm going to repent, I'm going to turn around and change my ways. But that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen in Exodus, and it doesn't happen in Revelation, and it doesn't happen in between. Why? Because people's hearts are hard. And I began to think about this in my own life, that this is a reflection of my life and maybe your life as well. Let me give you an example. How many people here, you might not want to put this in the comment section, but you can if you want. How many people here have ever received a speeding ticket? Right? We know that we're doing something that we're not supposed to do, and because of that, we are caught, we are fined, we face a judgment because of that. And so the question is, if you've received a speeding ticket and had to pay the fine, do you no longer speed? Or do you continue to do so? Well, if we're honest with ourselves, most of us would say, yeah, I got a speeding ticket a few years ago, but when I'm on the highway, I still speed, even though I know that I'm not supposed to. Why is that? Well, it's because judgment isn't enough. And our human heart, our human will sometimes says, I see a trial, I see an enemy, and God, why won't you just judge them? Why don't you just strike them down? Well, no, That's not what he does. That's not how it works. Why? Because judgment doesn't change somebody's heart. The only thing that will change a human heart is the transforming love of God. And that is the point of this book. The word tribulation in the Bible isn't just referring to something that's going on outside. It's actually referring to something that's going on inside of you. That tribulation, that trial, that war, it's not just a physical war that you can see, but it's an emotional tribulation or a verbal tribulation. And it's showing us that God is not the author of chaos and that this war isn't his fault, but we're actually suffering the consequences brought on by our own devices and by our own choices. And you look at what's going on inside of you, and you look at what's going on in the world around you, and in Revelation chapter 6 through 11, and you say, it's not supposed to be this way. But this is exactly what will happen until people are willing to say, God, not my will be done, but your will. We need you. Jesus tells us in the book of Matthew, let's jump to it, Matthew chapter 24, he says this, he says, you will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. Do not be surprised by these things. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Don't give up. In order for love to win, you need to persevere. Do not give up. Nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places, and all these are the beginning of birth pains. Let's not lose that. That's important. Just a moment. Then you will be handed over to the persecuted and put to death, to be persecuted and put to death. And you will be hated by all nations because of me. And at that time, many will turn away from the faith and will betray and hate each other. And many false prophets will appear and deceive many people. Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold. But the one who stands firm to the end will be saved. Jesus tells us that you will experience tribulation. And sometimes that tribulation is just the consequence of your own choices. And sometimes that tribulation is the consequence of the choices of people around you. But this is what happens in our world when people say, God, I don't need you. I'm going to do it on my own. So who can be saved? Jesus tells us that the ones that are saved are the ones that persevere to the end. The ones that choose God's love no matter how bad it gets, even to the point of death. But you might ask yourself the question, why would you choose God's love to the point of death? Why would you do that? In light of the fact that the world around you is mean and vicious and cruel and stealing, and why wouldn't you just respond exactly the same way as the rest of the world? Well, because it doesn't win. Only love wins. And when we respond like the world by choosing our own will, it only aggravates the consequences of the tribulation. I remember watching the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the first Chronicles of Narnia movie when it came out. Now, I had no experience with this franchise. I hadn't read the books. I didn't know anything about it. And I don't know if I was really enjoying the movie because it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching, and there is this scene where the White Witch, the antagonist, who is at war with Aslan, this lion, the good guy, she goes into his army's camp to speak with him. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, this is the most ridiculous movie ever. Why don't they just kill her right now? Why don't they just do exactly what she's trying to do to them? I mean, it's her and a couple people versus the entire army. And I was there with my wife, and she said, you really don't get it, do you? She said, this is the gospel. This is how God responds to us. This is his love, that he doesn't operate like the rest of the world does, that in fact, he fights by laying down his own life with love and self-sacrifice. So why would you choose God's love? Well, dads, let's think about it this way. You were probably present for the birth of your children, and that certainly is a tribulation. All right, you see that it's scary, that it's painful, you want to help, you want to fix something, but you can't do anything. And you ask yourself the question, after someone goes through that experience, why would you ever choose to do that, to go through a tribulation like that a second time? Well, because love drives us to create something beautiful. And the whole point here is that yes, there will be consequences, but God is willing, and those who choose his love will see something more beautiful in the end. Okay, so we're reading Revelation, and we read about this group of 144,000 people, and we read about these two witnesses. Who are they? Well, they're the ones that persevere until the end. Now, when you read numbers in Revelation, when you read fractions in Revelation, it simply means a portion. Now, we do the same thing in our lives as well, that we say the cup is half full or the cup is half empty, depending on your perspective. It doesn't literally mean that it's at 50% capacity. It just means that there's a portion that is there and a portion that is not. And so when you read these fractions in Revelation, I mean, they could be literal numbers, but if that's all that it is, it misses out on the beauty of what God is actually saying. So let me give you an example. When you read in Revelation that 1/3 of the world will be wiped out, it does not mean literally 1/3 will be wiped out. It means that a portion will, but the majority is not. When we read about these plagues that are coming, it says that even though you will experience tribulation, that you can survive them because they are limited. They do not last forever. So we also have some whole numbers to look at as well. The number 7 in the Bible, this isn't specific to Revelation, it's actually throughout the whole Bible. The number 7 represents completion and God's perfection. And the number 2, which we need to take a look at because of the two witnesses, well, this one is admittedly harder, but I think what it means is that which has been separated will be united together again. Think all the way back to the beginning, to the book of Genesis, and God created man and woman, and he joined them together, two literally fused into one. And then we kind of look at the Bible as this whole big picture. And in the Old Testament, the mechanism of God's love was the nation of Israel, the 12 tribes of Israel. And now, here in the New Testament, we have the 12 disciples ushering in the church, this access from beginning to end that all people have access to the love of God. And so this multitude of 144,000 people, it's 12 times 12 plus the zeros. And anytime you see zeros in the Bible, it simply represents extravagance. And so Jesus teaches people to forgive not 7 times, but 7 times 70. Right? 7 is completion and perfection, with the zeros, with extravagance to no end. So we've got the 12 tribes, and we have the 12 disciples, and they are ushering in this new group of people, those who are not Jewish, into the love of God. And so 12 times 12 plus the zeros, 144,000, it means all nations. That there will be a group of many people, more than you expect, who persevere, who choose the love of God. It's not a literal 144,000, because there probably have been more than 144,000 people who have already said yes to Jesus, and you haven't missed the boat. It's saying that there will be a lot of people who choose to follow the love of God and not be defined by the tribulation that they experience. That they will stand up against the enemy. They will stand up against the beast. They will choose love in God's way, even if it costs them their lives. Look, if you were to choose to live that way, what would happen? Salvation. Yours. People around you. There would be freedom from the consequences of those terrible decisions. And this is what God has for you. Judgment isn't going to bring change. Love brings change. The only thing that is capable of transforming a human heart is the love of God. And we choose it because Jesus has modeled it for us from the beginning. That he is faithful and he is with us even in the midst of tribulation.
There's a grace when the heart is under fire. Another way when the walls are closing in. And when I look at the space between where I used to be and this reckoning, I know I will never be alone. There was another in the fire, standing next to me. There was another in the waters, holding back the seas. And should I ever be reminding of how I've been set free, there is a cross that bears the burden, where another died for me. There is another in the fire. All my dead left for dead beneath the waters. I'm no longer a slave to my sin anymore. And should I fall in the space between what remains of me and this reckoning, either way I won't bow to the things of this world. And I know I will never be alone. There is another in the fire, standing next to me. There is another in the waters, holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminding what power set me free, there is a grave that holds nobody, and now that power lives in me. There is another in the fire. 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 And I can see the light in the darkness as the darkness bows to him. I can hear the roar in the heavens as the space between wells thin. I can feel the ground shake beneath us as the prison walls cave in. Nothing stands between us. Nothing stands between us. There is no other name but the name that is Jesus. He who was and still is and will be through it all. So come what may in the space between all the things unseen and this reckoning, I know I will never be alone. I know I will never be alone. There'll be another in the fire, standing next to me. There'll be another in the waters, holding back the seas. And should I ever need reminding how good you've been to me, I'll count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. And I can see the light in the darkness as the darkness bows to him. I can hear the roar in the heavens as the space between wells thin. I can feel the ground shake beneath us another in the fire. I'll count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be.
Maybe you feel like you're going through a tribulation. Maybe you feel like what's going on inside of you is that trial, is that war, and you're struggling with the consequences of your decisions or the consequences of the decisions of people around you. Maybe you're struggling to find a reason to get up in the morning and to have purpose. What do? Maybe when you read Revelation, you're filled with fear, not because you see of something that might happen someday in the future, but because you see it happening in your life right now. That you would say that verbally, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, that you are in that trial. What do? Can I remind you that the book of Revelation says that we can have hope in the midst of a trial? That the 144,000, that group who chose love, no matter how tough it got, that they demonstrate for us that we can experience hope and peace and the love of God, that those who persevere will experience that victory with Jesus. Maybe you've never said yes to Jesus, and maybe it's because of misconceptions you've had about who he is or what he's like, or what churches have done in the past that are just wrong and tone deaf, and frankly don't always reflect who Jesus really is. God tells us that there is no greater love than this, to lay down your life for a friend. And I just want to speak some truth today and tell you that the way that God feels about you, that you are a friend of God, that you are his beloved, that he loves you so much that he was willing to sacrifice himself, that in the middle of a trial, that he fights not with weapon, not with might or force, but by sacrifice and by love, and that you can experience that love of God in the midst of your trial. All you need to do is say yes to him. And if you want to do that, just send us a text message. Just say yes. 705-692-1658. We're not looking for your money. We're not asking you to become a member of our church. Nothing like that. We just want to pray with you and support you and answer any questions that you might have. And look, if you have said yes to Jesus and you consider yourself a follower of Jesus, can I remind you that you have a mission? That in this trial, your mission is to demonstrate the love of God to everyone around you. It's not to buy into conspiracy theories. It's not to spread fear and panic and anxiety and misinformation. It is to spread the love of God, even to the point of death. God is faithful. And he is there for you right now in the midst of trial. God is faithful and he will be with you in the midst of tribulation. And so choose love, persevere, and let his love triumph. Be blessed this week, and we will see you very soon.
If you've been walking the same old road for miles and miles, if you've been hearing the same old voice tell the same old lies, if you're trying to fill the same old holes inside, well, there's a better life. Well, there's a better life. If you got pain, he's a pain taker. If you feel lost, he's a way maker. If you need freedom or saving, he's a prison shaking savior. If you got chains, he's a chain breaker. We've all searched for the light of day in the dead of night. We've all found ourselves worn out from the same old fight. We've all run to things there's a better life. Yeah, there's a better life. If you got pain, he's a pain taker. If you feel lost, he's a way maker. If you need freedom or saving, he's a prison shaking savior. If you got chains, he's a chain breaker. If you believe it, if you receive it, if you can feel it, somebody testify.
Testify.
If you believe it, if you receive it, if you can feel it, somebody testify.
Testify.
If you believe it, if you receive it, if you can feel it, somebody testify.
Testify.
If you believe it, if you receive it, if you can feel it, somebody testify.
Testify.
If you got chains, he's a pain taker. If you feel lost, he's a way maker. If you need freedom or saving, he's a prison shaking savior. If you got chains, he's a chain breaker. If you need freedom or saving, he's a prison shaking savior. If you got chains, well, he's a chain breaker.